Good morning, everyone. But I'm going to focus this morning on our connection to water to kind of just define that a little bit. I'm going to start out with an Ernest Holmes quote that I found that I loved. And it's particularly handy when we find ourselves in situations where maybe we need some guidance or we don't really know the way, know our way, or can't find our way. And I think it reminds us to just stop and take a moment and pause. The Ernest Holmes quote says, "I am guided by the same intelligence and inspired by the same imagination which scatters moonbeams across the water and holds the force of nature in its grasp." I think it's really interesting how the force of waves and water is used in this quote as the means of transmission for light when we might find ourselves in darkness, and how this power holds all the forces of nature in its grasp. And we have all of that already within us. All we have to do is stop and remember that. It's so important. But let's get back to water and why water is such an essential element in our lives here on Earth. Let's just start with human beings on this one first level. According to the US government from their water sciences school, the human body is approximately 60% water. The human brain is 75% water. Our bones, the most dense component and hardest, toughest component in our bodies, are even 22% water. Our blood is 83% water. Our heart, that keeps our circulation in our body going, no surprise, is 79% water. Water obviously facilitates transmission and flow throughout everything in life. The average human will perish if it is without water for only about 3 days. Pretty amazing how dependent we are upon water to keep our bodies running and fueled efficiently and working properly. And let's just think about it on a practical level. When we want to relax, or when we want to escape or go on vacation, where do most Americans go? How do we do that? Well, 52% of us love going to the beach. We love being connected and reminded of our connection to water. And we go out of our ways to find new places where we can reconnect with that spirit, that energy that water holds for us by going to the beach. Another 10% of Americans love going to vacation on a lake or a river. No surprise, but 30% of Americans love going on cruises. We set out on huge ships across the water, discovering new places that we've never been to before in a really exciting and beautiful and mystical format where we can enjoy the water being just all around us on a cruise ship. 7% of us even like skiing on snow, which is just the frozen form of water. And then we got to look at the earth, everything around us in nature. The earth's surface is 71% water, and its oceans account for 96.5% of the total water supply on our planet. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. And it really underscores the reasons why we need to be more mindful about how we use and how we treat and care for our oceans. The US alone uses about 275 billion gallons of water each and every day. 79 billion gallons of that water comes from underground aquifers. The rest comes from lakes and streams and water reservoirs, places that we now see drying up like Lake Mead and Hoover Dam out west. And then we're reminded by this water cycle, where we have water completely shifting and changing forms and moving around us all the time on our planet and in our atmosphere. We get rain and snow and ice, which bring water down to the earth. When that freezes, it forms our polar ice caps where water is stored, and probably one of the largest reserves of fresh water on our planet on the North and South poles, which sadly are melting at alarmingly quick rates. We also, this water circulates and flows into streams and lakes and reservoirs and rivers on our planet, where we as humans bring it into our water sanitation plants so that it's safe for drinking, and we consume it, and we excrete it. And from the lakes and streams, the water evaporates all back up into our atmosphere, and it just keeps going around and around and around in this circle, constantly moving, constantly transforming its shape. It's a pretty amazing thing when you stop and think about it. And it's all around us all the time. So there's an undeniable connection to water being a life force on this planet for us all, for all creatures, not just human beings. So one of the things that I love about this topic today is when we are confronted with challenges and obstacles, or we're looking for light in our lives, we can turn to water. I like the expression, be like water, because when you stop and think about it, we don't have to power wash our way through life. We can simply just go with the flow and allow ourselves to be moved and transported around the boulders in the stream, around the waters, around the rocks. We don't have to smash up against them. We can simply just choose to move around them and go on our way and enjoy the ride. We can even transcend cliffs. That's what waterfalls are made of. And right below them are usually beautiful pools with soft landings where water is collected and continues on its flow. So if you need some time or have some problems in your life or challenges that you might be facing, go to the CSLMidtown.org website and contact the help of a practitioner. We've got an excellent team of practitioners here who are well trained in our teaching, and we're ready to help you and guide you and just be there for you when you might need that. So if you would now, I'd like to ask you to join me in an affirmative prayer. I'm going to say this in the first person. Accept what you wish and what resonates with you, and whatever doesn't, just let it keep flowing and release it, and just relax and enjoy with me, and know this together. There's only one power, one divine intelligence, one source of love and light, operating throughout the universe and operating through me and each person present right here, right now, and always. And I am always divinely guided by this infinite power and intelligence, because it is always within me and always within each. All we have to do is simply stop, take a deep breath, and recognize the presence and the power of the infinite creator within. And when we do so, we are one with this infinite energy and power that is constantly moving, just like water, throughout our universe and throughout our bodies, expressing perfectly and uniquely as me and each one of you in the world. And today I claim divine wisdom, divine love, divine guidance, working perfectly within me and within each, allowing me to recognize the essential nature of water in my body, in the world all around me here on earth. This important connection. Water transmits, water transcends. And when we become like water, we learn to transcend the challenges in our lives that may be presenting themselves. And I know and I claim that I and each have everything present to allow me and each to do this easily, effortlessly. All I have to do is recognize, trust, and surrender. I'm so grateful for this wonderful teaching, for this new thought, for this Center for Spiritual Living here in Midtown Atlanta. Its wonderful staff, its ministers. I'm so grateful for this presence of life and creativity that is always within me and each and every second of our lives, expressing perfectly and uniquely. And knowing this, I release my word into the universal law, knowing that I am one, supported, uplifted, and transpired by water, by life, by love, and it is all good. And I release my word into the universal law, letting it be so, and so it is.
The other gift we have is remembering those moments of high regard. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Remembering the moments of high resolve, when you've had those high level experiences of awareness and resolve and a feeling of this is how life is supposed to be. And the good thing, the wonderful thing about memory, it's right there present with us in that moment, as soon as, and in the very happening of anything, we can go back to those places. I don't know about you, but I have some places in my mind that when I just think about them, I go back to a place of peace. One of them is imaginary. It doesn't even exist. Years ago, it was there, and I kind of created it when I was living through a whole lot of fear. Just couldn't seem to break the fear pattern. And I created this imaginary place where I would go into this room filled with everything I loved and liked. Had an ice cream machine in one corner, and it had all these wonderful things, and it was guarded by these monstrous lions at the front that could not let anything in that was not for my higher and greater good. That was kind of extreme, but at that point in my life, I really needed that. And when things would get to be seemingly overwhelming, I'd take a deep breath, I'd go into that quiet, private space and private room, and it was all in my consciousness, and I would find calm and peace. I just have to remember that I'm back there. I don't have to go into it like I used to. I have a place in the woods with a tree that I love to sit next to and sit down and lean against and talk to, and imagine that it's talking back to me because it's a lot older than I am. Those kinds of things bring us solitude and peace and satisfaction, and they can quench whatever fire may be going on in front of us or around us. One of the fascinating things with that fire was that there were some things that should have burned that didn't. My whole living room basically was burned up. I had some interesting plastic sculptures. I had this big, tall thing that had all of my CDs in it, and it was made of metal. It got really hot. It turned and twisted this way, and all that plastic formed a really interesting sculpture that I have pictures of. I should have used today, but I didn't think of it in time to get it out there. But those it created lots of things like this. I had pictures on the wall, some in plastic frames. I apologize to the artists in the room, and the frames melted and drooled, and the whole room looked like a Salvador Dali painting, where everything was melted and twisted, except my coffee table that burned up. I mean, literally was ash, and my Science of Mind book had been sitting on it, and it wasn't burned. It was scorched a little around the edges. Now, I don't know if it's made out of some fire-resistant stuff, or there was just, I needed that book to continue my work right then in that moment, but it did not burn. The other thing that didn't burn out of all of the stuff in that room that did was one of those pictures on the wall. The frame melted, and the picture in it fell to the floor. That whole room was soaked except the picture. And it was my grandson. One of my favorite pictures of him when he was about 4 years old, probably. Black and white, very artistic. He had that innocent, mischievous look that he can get. And it was like in the days following, when I had nothing except what I took with me out of the apartment, which was myself and the clothes I was wearing, I had that picture, and I had my Science of Mind book that carried me through those days until the cleanup people could get in, and I began to get things back. And I did get a lot of things back from the other parts of the apartment because I had a whole upstairs. And my point in that is that the water will bring to us those things that we need. Life brings to us what we need, even in the worst crisis, even when things seem to be at their lowest and their most horrible. There is something innate in this consciousness of oneness that knows us, and that we are known because we are made of it. We are created out of the same stuff. Therefore, it recognizes our needs and it shows up. I have a little thing on my phone that I will look at all the time that says, the power that created you knows your needs and your desires and provides them without asking. Now, we have to be in a receptive mood often, and we have to recognize it when it comes our way. But being water is about going with the flow and not fighting in a hard way, but simply not trying to be fire against fire, but to be water with water, to be water with fire and water with whatever else shows up for us. So we have those things built in. We have breathing, we have remembering. And the other thing that's so important is we have gathering. Now, yeah, it's kind of a hassle after getting used to sitting in my office at home and being dressed from here up and showing up to do this service every week. And that was, I got to enjoy that a lot for a couple of years. But, when we are together physically, something happens in our physiology. Dopamine gets kicked off, especially if we're with people that we know are safe and among people and in situations with people where we feel love, perhaps, or we feel a connection. Just being in the physical presence kicks off the dopamine. Now, I don't know if anybody did a study whether Zoom does that or not, but I certainly know that in my world, when I leave here, it doesn't matter how many people have been here or I've been with, being among the folks that I know matter. I know have similar thoughts, and whether they agree with me on every little thing doesn't really matter. What matters is they agree with me that we all have the right to who we are and to know who we are. That's what matters. And in knowing that, then I can feel the rush. I get the rush. And sometimes I get it with elbow bumps or with a hug or just walk into the room and see who's here. That gathering is powerful. But there is one thing that we have as water and being water that absolutely will take care of any fire that doesn't need to be transformed or for me to transform into some other state in order to deal with it or to get through it. It's the universal solvent. Water is a universal solvent. It dissolves most everything. Now, there are a few things that it doesn't. That's true. But ultimately and finally, water is the one on the planet that works the best in terms of being a solvent to dissolve things. And the universal solvent, I think, that we all have is gratitude. If we can find anything within the situation to be grateful for, the fire will begin to go out. If we can find anything within that fiery idea and that fiery situation to be grateful for, if we find any way to understand it from a larger perspective, out of gratitude. There's the ancient wisdom teaching that says, in all things be grateful. Not for all things be grateful, because I'm not going to be grateful for everything for sure. But even within all things, if I can find gratitude, then I begin to quench the fire. And I begin to no longer be affected by whatever that fire is. So I invite you, practice those things, remembering, breathing, gathering, even if it's for a moment. I now understand why during COVID I would go out and eat out in restaurants, sitting by myself outdoors away from people, simply because that gathering gave me some connection, some sense of dopamine rush and some sense of satisfaction and peace. So however you do that, wherever you do it with joy, do it with freedom, do it with ease, and do it because you love yourself enough to take care of yourself so we can love each other as well. Knowing this is the truth, I let it be, and so it is. Thank you very much.